folks, it's another technique for you today. This is a card that I just made, and I had some fun times with some new product that just came out, and I thought I would show them to you today. So we're going to focus on this little area right here, not the whole card, just this small little area that you can place on any kind of pattern paper or card that you want, or on a scrapbook page. So the first thing I wanted to show you was, this is a new product by Sizzix and Hero Arts. They combined to come out with some stamps, obviously Hero Arts stamps, and then Sizzix die cuts. So what you can do is you stamp these out on paper, and then you use the die cuts to go over them and cut them out so that you don't have to do all the fussy cutting individually, which is great. A lot of fun, easy to use, quick and easy, which I really liked. Just to show you really quick, this stamp right here, this is the stamp that I stamped on paper, regular white smooth prism cardstock, and then here's the die, and the die sits right over the stamped image, as you can see, sits right over it. You run it through any die cutting machine, and it cuts it out for you. So I have it half pulled out and half not, just so you can see the back of it, see the front of it. So the die sits right on top of the stamped image. Run it through your die cutting machine, and then it pops out, and there is the item, and then here is the die cut. Isn't that awesome? So that sits right on top, and you line it up pretty easily. You can see it sits right on top of the stamped image there. And you run it through your machine, any kind of die cutting machine that cuts the thin metal dies. Pretty cool, pretty easy, absolutely love it. I am in love with this, and I had to do a card with it right away. Of course, you know I get excited about my products and do something right away. So that's the Sizzix Hero Arts combination, stamping and die cutting new items that are out. So just to move along here, there were also some small butterflies in that stamp set. There were 3 size butterflies. This was the medium one. And obviously I stamped it just like the flowers, and I cut it out, and you can see that there is the metal piece again, the die cut sitting right on top of the stamped image. Ran it through my machine, and you pop it right out. And there is your item. And then there is the die cut. Isn't that awesome? Super cool, especially when you're doing butterflies and you have the little antenna. I mean, how many of us like to fussy cut around the antenna? I know usually most of the time I just cut those antenna off and I add something else in, or I leave them out. So that's pretty cool, because it really saves a lot of time and a lot of work when we're making our cards. So this is a fantastic product. Absolutely love it. And I'll go over the rest of the card that I've made for you, just to give you an idea of how I threw it all together. The first thing I did was I colored in my flowers. So I stamped the flowers twice. You can see here it's on smooth white prism with Memento ink. I stamped it black Memento, stamped it twice. One I cut out, that's going to go on my card. This one I'm going to color in. And I colored this one in with my Copic markers, and I used R83, R85, R89, and RV17. Those are the 4 colors that I use to color in these flowers. And I'm going to show you one really quick. A lot of people have been asking how I do these, and I know there's so many tutorials out there on how to do these, but people have been asking, so I'm going to do it really quick for you. Since I'm cutting these flowers out, I'm going to not worry about staying in the lines when I'm coloring. So I'm going over with my lightest color first, and I'm running my ink right over the whole petal of the flower there. And this is with the R83, and that's my lightest pink. I always start lightest and work to the darkest. Now, people talk about shading and shading their items that they color in. And, you know, I have a BFA, I have an MFA in Fine Arts, and I could go into forever about talking about shading and coloring. But just for, you know, ease of just, you know, doing a quick card and having a good time with it, I like to shade from the inside out. So the inside of the flower I consider to be the darkest, and the outside of the flower I consider to be the lightest. That's the easiest way to do it for people just starting out, or someone who wants to do something really quick and not get into too many details. So if I'm going from the darkest to the lightest, I'm working from the inside out. I'm now going to R85, my next color, and I'm working from the inside out. So I'm just taking my marker and I'm feathering it out. So I'm just taking my marker and just swinging the colors, have the brush just swing it right out like that. Then I'm going to go to my next color, which is the R89, which is the darkest. And once again, I'm doing the same exact thing. I'm going from the inside, and I'm just moving out. This time not as far, because it's the darker color, not as far, and I'm keeping it kind of close. And of course, I'm doing this while the card is standing up. So you're looking at it and you're like, wow, Donna, that looks really horrible. But you're going to go back with your lightest color, which is R83. And you're going to blend over the whole thing, the whole entire thing. And as you do that, you can see that the alcohol inks are mixing, they're combining, and they're kind of blending everything together. You may have to go back again and touch up and do some reworking, and that's totally cool. I mean, I do it all the time. Nothing has to be perfect on the first try. And of course, they're flowers, so you know, they're not going to be perfect. I also added in a really nice hot pink to give it some brightness, so RV17. And this one I did same thing from the inside out. I started right at the center of the flower and I worked my way out. Just give it some hot pink. And you can see that's what it is now. And I've lost a little bit of my darkness in the center, so I'm going to go back and add a little bit of darkness in there with my R89, and then I'm going to blend it again with the lightest color, R83. And you can see that it's coming nicely, it's coming along. I'd worked on this just a little bit more, I'd bring some of the darker out a little bit, but for the most part you get what we're doing here. You work from the inside out and you blend your colors and you move them in together, and it really gives it a nice look. What I did also with this flower was I took a little yellow YR24 and I went around the very ends of the flower. Simply just like that. And because they're alcohol inks, they don't the colors don't interfere with one another, and they really give it a nice brightness. And now what I did was I did it to all three of them, and I cut them out. I cut them out individually, and this one's fussy cut. This one that you do have to cut them out individually. The die, there is no die here that cuts out the flowers by themselves. The die cuts out the leaves and everything in it. So these you do have to cut out individually, but they went pretty quick. Not a big deal at all. What I also did was I have Glam Mist from Tattered Angels, and love this stuff. And it's just liquid with some glitter in there and some other great stuff. And I just used a regular paintbrush and I painted over it. And this really blended everything together, and it gave it, I don't know if you can see it, but it gave it a really nice shimmer and a really nice little bit of gold flecks in there too, which look really super great. Okay, that's how I colored my flowers. As far as the leaves go, the leaves I used YG05, YG09, and G07. And it was pretty easy. I just went over with the lightest color first, which was the YG05. And I went over all of the leaves, right over the black there, all of the leaves. And I even did the stems as well. And then I went back the same way with the darker colors. And what I did was, if you notice on the stamp kind of gives you a darker area where to make it darker and where to make it lighter. They've already done that for you, and what I did was I followed that. So these little darker areas in here, you can see there's light here and dark there. what I did was I followed that pattern, and the darker areas I used the darker markers, which really set the leaves off nicely. They've already done it for me. So that's how I colored in the leaves. So I colored 3 of these in, I cut them out, and what I did was I used foam tape. So you can see underneath there's foam tape. So I have the original cut out. You can see it right there. And then I cut the individual flowers out and I popped them up with foam tape. I added some little gold beads in the center and a little bit of pink stickles, fruit punch stickles in between the gold beads, just to finish off the centers a little bit. So you can see this right here. This is where it was cut out and placed right on there. So that's that. That's the flower portion. That's what I was looking for, this here. So you can see that sits right there. That's the flower portion. The center white area there was a Spellbinders. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know the names of all of these. I know it's a label, I just don't know what number it is. But there's the shape there. I used the second one in, and I cut a piece of white. Once again, the white prism smooth, and a very, very thin piece of chipboard. I put it through a machine and it cut it for me, which was great, just so I can give it just a little bit of stability. And what I did was, just to get that little blue in the background, I used my blending brush, and Tim Holtz, I used tumbled glass. And once again, if you put the ink on the brush and just very slowly blend it on, I'm sure you've seen this done many times. Tim showed us so many times how to use this, and other people, that I think it's like second nature now to most of us. But just in case you haven't seen it before, that's how I got the background. Pretty quick. I want it to look like sky. You could also use a little broken china for a little darkness around, broken china for a little darkness around the edge if you'd like to. And I place this on a piece of the chipboard. I put my flower here with the colored flowers on top. And the stamp I used is from Impression Obsession. And I don't even know what this is called, which one it's called. It's CL387, Joy in the Journey it's called. And that's the stamp I used, Find Joy in the Journey. And I used Bamboo Leaves by Memento, and I stamped it right on the side there. Add a little twine, and then I added my little butterfly. And the butterfly I colored in with my 3 blue markers. I used B91, B93, and B95. And once again, very easily, we're going to start with the lightest color first and color in my butterfly, the entire thing. It's all cut out for us, so there's no worries there. And then I went to the darker one, B93, and I went from starting at the very center, bringing my color out. There's a little guy. And then I went to my darkest color, 95. And I haven't even blended it yet, and it looks pretty good. What I did too was I went back and I added just a little bit of green from the leaves, YG05. And I just added, just at the center there, just a little bit of green, just to kind of pick up that green that was in the leaves. And there's my butterfly that was sitting there. Okay, that's about it, folks. It wasn't that hard. It came together pretty quick, and hopefully you have some of these stamps at home and you can play with them, and maybe you have a different kind of set you'd like to play with them and come up with something cool. So have a great day and have fun stamping.